All right, so let's go ahead and build up our Express server. So here, let's get rid of all this and let's import Express. So const Express equals to require Express. Now if you're new to Node.js, you might be wondering what is require. So it is same as what you did in React. So in React you use import Express from Express, right? So that's how you write. But in Node.js you can't do that because Node.js does not support this import export syntax yet. It might do in future, but until now it doesn't. So this is the default way of importing. All right, so it's same with the export. You could do export default in React, but here in Node.js by default you will use module.exports. Okay, so you saw a bit of a example in the previous lecture as well. However, there is a way, and that's not a problem. We can do that, but let me show you how you do it the default way, and in the next lecture I will show you how you can use import and export as well. All right, so let's continue here. So const app equals to, so once we have this Express app, we require that we can invoke this Express as a function, and this will give us the entire Express server, and that server we make it available in this app variable. Now this server gives us a lot of properties and methods which will help us build up our server. So you can see app.get, I can use that function, get function. So when I say app.get, this is basically coming from the Express server because the Express server is stored in this variable app. Okay, so app.get, I can use this function, and this function takes two arguments. First argument is the URL. So for example, from your React application, you might want to send some message to your backend, and then your backend will format that, maybe add some extra message and then send it back to the client. Okay, so let's imagine that situation. So let's say you will send request from your front end to backend to the endpoint called API/message. Okay, so here you can see I'm using the colon because this message could be dynamic. It could be a good morning, a good afternoon, or anything. It could change over time. All right, so that's something like that. The dynamic parameters you can catch using the colon. All right, so that's the URL endpoint. That's the first argument to this function. Second argument is a callback function. So you get that callback function, and this function will have access to request and response object. So this request and response object is available or is made available by Express. So Express app, you can think of Express as a request response handler. So basically you get the request and you send the response. So in between, your server will do certain work. For example, going to database, saving to database, things like that. So at the moment, we just want to send this message back to the client where it came from. All right, so we can use that. We can do that using response.status. Okay, so you can see here we have access to this request and response object in this callback function, which is the second argument to get. And here, this response gives us a lot of properties and methods. At the moment, we're using this function called status. So you can send some HTTP status, for example, 200, 400 if there is an error, things like that. And again, you can send this method with another function called send. So you want to send some message, right? So let's send request.params.message. Okay, so what's happening here is you saw we access the status and send functions from this response object, and in similar way we can access the incoming message from request object. So request.params, which means a parameter. So anything that is coming in a route parameter, in our case this is message, we named it message, you could name it anything. So if anything is coming into this message parameter, then we can grab that here. So you can see we can access that and we can send it back to the client. Okay, let's give it a try. Now before we try, of course we have to run our project on some port. So for that we can use the listen method. Again, use app.listen, and we want to listen to this app on port. So let's hardcode the port number at the moment. Let's call it 8000, and then again to this listen function, you can see that's the first argument, and that is the minimum requirement. You don't need to do anything else, but if you want, you can use a callback function here and maybe just write some console log. Let's use backticks, which is on top of your keyboard on the left top, just below the escape tab. Right, so here server is running on port 8000. Let's write that. So that is all we need to create a server using Express. Now let's try to visit our Express server in port 8000, and let's try to go to this endpoint. Okay, let's see how it works. So localhost 8000, that's where our API is running, /API/message. Now you can see our server can take dynamic messages. So let's send hello there. Let's do that, and you can see our server send the response back, and the response basically contains the message, nothing else, because that's what we're doing here. We get the request and we send the response, and in the response, whatever message we got, the dynamic message, we are sending that back, nothing else. Right, that's cool. Now let's try something else. Let's say today is 1st of January 2021. All right, so let's say happy new year, and you can see our server receives this as a request parameter and send it back. That is great. Now you can obviously do some more. You can use backticks. Okay, make sure it is a backtick and not quotes. Inside backticks we can embed variables. So this value we put here like so, and then we can write some string here. Here is your message, and we just embed this variable request params message. Okay, now let's go here. Let's try one more time, and you can see now this is formatted differently because this is how we are sending response. So you can see Express is a request response handler. You get request, you send the response back, but in between obviously you will be doing a lot of things later, interacting with the database, authenticating the user, and so on. But this is the core concept of a server, building our API.